Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Jimmy Kimmel's back filming his show after being out with COVID. He joked, "I drank so much bleach, my teeth are whiter than a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago." But Stephen Colbert has stopped production of his show until further notice. The word from the New York Post is Colbert is experiencing symptoms consistent with a recurrence of COVID. Colbert had previously tested positive per a tweet on April 21st. At that time, he said he was basically fine and joked, "This just proves I'll do anything to avoid interviewing Jason Bateman, who was booked as the guest." Monday, he went on Twitter again and wrote, "Worst sequel ever. Colbert will isolate for a few more days. No word on when he will return." I had missed this. John Mulaney at the festival last week made some jokes in the Dave Chappelle ballpark. He joked, "We have great security. This fence is so jumpable, it's crazy." He added he could even clear it with bad hips. He then issued a mock challenge to the crowd saying, "No one's going to do anything. You don't have the balls. Would be great publicity for whatever your cause is, but you don't have the effing balls. Your mother was right about you." Dave Chappelle's lawyer is unhappy with the LA County District Attorney's decision not to file felony charges against the man who allegedly attacked Dave Chappelle on stage. The lawyer said it's a travesty of justice that the DA is refusing to prosecute this case as a felony. The city attorney who filed the case is doing his job, but the DA should also do his job and charge this as a felony. Now, bad news, we're not going to see that set from Dave Chappelle at the Hollywood Bowl on Netflix. It's not going to be released as a special. Apparently, that was the plan all along, not to release it. But the Hollywood Reporter has a list of shows that Netflix will be releasing, and I'm excited about this because they're all in early June. Johnny Mac, why are you so excited about that? Well, I can tell you, I've been hosting this particular show for almost 3 years now, and the weekly comedy thing on the Live One app, I don't know, 7-8 years, and there are little valleys in the comedy calendar. One of them right after Memorial Day, a big one right after July 4th, and the end of the year is pretty quiet, but you can usually fake that because everybody puts out top 10 lists of, best comedy whatevers, and there's stuff to comment on. I can kind of fake the holidays, but the two in the summer are a little rough. Actually, right after Labor Day is a little rough too. So some of the shows, May 19th, The Hall, honoring the greats of stand-up. No press came out of that. I'm surprised. This is described as an evening to celebrate some of the greatest stand-ups of all time. Now, you'd think some press would come out of this list. Listen, John Mulaney honors Robin Williams. Dave Chappelle honors Richard Pryor. Chelsea Handler honors Joan Rivers. Odd choice there. And Jon Stewart honors George Carlin. Should be a good special. That's on May 19th. Then June 6th, Bill Burr presents Friends Who Kill, a showcase featuring stand-ups curated by Burr. June 7th and the 12th, That's My Time with David Letterman. So this is different than the David Letterman talk show. On That's My Time with David Letterman, each of the 6 episodes spotlights one comedian, including a 5-minute stand-up set and conversation with Letterman. That sounds like something I will check out. June 9th, Standouts, an LGBTQ plus celebration, the largest ever gathering of LGBTQ plus comics. Are you keeping notes on this? Don't worry, I put notes in my editorial calendar. I'll remind you each day that there's a new special. June 10th, a tribute to Bob Saget. June 11th, Amy Schumer's Parental Advisory. Is that what she called her show? That's terrible. Johnny Mac, leave Amy alone. Okay, I'll leave Amy alone, but Parental Advisory is her special recorded in 1991? What are you doing? That's a showcase featuring stand-ups curated by Schumer. Who was on that? I have gone to Google and I found dead-frog.com. Say it with me, you're home for comedy news. Their Google search says it was Amy Schumer, Lil Rel Howery, Chris DiStefano, Christina P., Ron Funches, Rachel Feinstein, and Jay McBride. That's a pretty good set. Jay McBride's really good. That's worth watching. Okay, June 13th, Pete Davidson presents The Best Friends, a multi-comic special. June 14th, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, a Ladies Night Live. June 16th, Snoop Dogg's Effin' Around Comedy Special. And then June 23rd, you'll have to wait a week for your Best of the Festival highlights from throughout the 11-day event. There is no air date yet for Gabe Iglesias at Dodger Stadium. So why isn't Chappelle part of this? The Hollywood Reporter said the set's absence is not due to the assault. The streamer made it clear before the festival that Dave Chappelle's 4 sold-out Hollywood Bowl shows were not being taped for a special. Chappelle had his own cameras present to film the show, as comics often do when working out new material, as Chappelle was. Boy, working out new material at a festival. And you know what? I've seen Dave do that. He did that at the Aspen Comedy Festival, many moons ago. I think that was the first year we had Jim Breuer on Sirius, so 2005, 6, somewhere in that range. The Hollywood Reporter adds, professionally shot footage of the attack likely does exist and could eventually see the light of day in some fashion, but it's not part of Netflix's plans. Jason Zinnemann has a really good recap in the New York Times. Jason is someone you should follow on Twitter. He is the comedy writer for the New York Times. I have shared this article on the subreddit Daily Comedy News and the Facebook group page, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. I'll skim Jason's article a little bit. He was talking about at the Letterman show, Dave joked, anyone hear an earthquake or a tremor? The punchline must have been the Netflix stock crashing. That's really funny. Anthony Jeselnik told the crowd at his show that he loved that Netflix started the festivities by laying off half their marketing team, losing $1 billion, and then trying to kill Dave Chappelle. Fantastic joke. Jason writes, the rap against Jeselnik is that his use of misdirection can be formulaic like a math problem, but this show was an advanced calculus, an implicit rebuke to comedians relying on lazy jokes about marginalized groups. He said he had writer's block over the pandemic, so he set himself goals to escape it. He joked, I wanted to aim not too high, said something easy, trying to handle this better than John Mulaney. I'll come back to Mulaney in a second. I'm going to dive in and out of this article because I wanted to talk about comedy festivals in general. I was going back and forth on Instagram with a regular listener of the show, and I had intended yesterday to talk about comedy festivals, and just yesterday was so packed. So let me do it here because Jason Zinnemann just touched upon something. The rap against Jeselnik is that his use of misdirection can be formulaic like a math problem. When I used to go to comedy festivals like all the time, I talked about being able to see The Matrix. I can't remember who was on stage. It was somebody like Brian Posehn, Patton Oswalt. It might have been Brian. And it was like the 15th show I had seen in 3 days, something like that. And I'm sitting up in the back of, maybe it was the Vic Theater. You really remember this story well, Johnny Mac, don't you? I could tell you I was with Mark Says Hi, my host. Mark was sitting on my left. Mark had the same reaction. We were up in the balcony. Whoever we were watching, we started to see The Matrix. And what I mean by that was we knew how the jokes were going to go. We didn't know the specific words, but it was premise based in reality, slight exaggeration, something that didn't happen but is comedically funny, callback. And we were sitting there and we were like, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, next. 1, 2, 3, 4, next. Okay, call back to something from 20 minutes ago. Check. And it was really weird. And it sometimes if you hear too much comedy, this starts to happen to your brain. Back to Zinnemann, he wrote about Mulaney. Those expecting John Mulaney, who performed at the Forum, to dig deep into the relationship drama that made him a tabloid staple would be disappointed. When I first saw him do the same material at the City Winery 1 year ago, his discussion of addiction and rehab was raw and messy and bleak. It has tightened into a polished showbiz machine with his broadest act-outs, impressions, and even an extended song and dance. His show is less a bearing of the soul than a joke dense and pointed scuffing up of his image. Its key line, likability is a jail. Really good job, Jason, analyzing this stuff. Post the Chappelle assault, Jason says, beefy security guys were quick to clamp down on hecklers. I saw 2 people wrestled to the ground and dragged out of a theater before a Snoop Dogg hosted show. Another person was forcibly ejected after heckling Letterman. Many comics seemed jittery and ready to battle. When Mike Epps, dressed in a black leather suit, walked on stage shadowboxing, everybody got the joke. It was funny, but this celebration of jokes sat alongside the new alertness to security and added yet another irony to the festival. Comedians were sympathetic to Chappelle, but the backlash towards his jokes about the trans community started to make its way into sets. Robin Tran said people had been asking her about the assault. Robin joked, I just want to say for the record, I only told him to scare Chappelle. That's funny. Another trans comic, Nori Reed, did a very funny experimental set that postponed telling a conventional punchline for a few minutes, then called it inspired by Chappelle, no jokes, all vibes. Wow. The laugh button was out there as well. They talked about a good taping with Pete Holmes. He was taping his podcast. Pretty good guests, John Hamm, Chris Redd, and Mateo Lane. Hamm and Holmes spent 45 minutes riffing about nothing. Then Chris Redd, followed by Mateo Lane, came out and did more of the same. The chemistry between Redd and Lane was a wonder to behold. Pretty cool. So in Jason's article, he mentions going to 2 shows a night, and that's pretty much what I do. My brain is starting to get into the Montreal Comedy Festival late July. I'm planning on going up there. I hope you go up there. Would love to have a beverage with you. And that's usually what I do. 2 shows, a 7-ish and a 9:30-ish. And if I've got energy, I'll hit a midnight show. Again, it depends what the rest of my day was like, who I'm with, You definitely want a wingman at these things. I've done these things solo, and when you're sitting there by yourself, it's not as cool. It's like going to a concert by yourself, if you've ever done that. Like, it's cool, but it's better to have a buddy or wingman or somebody to talk to. And you've heard me talk about this a lot. I think the way to handle festivals is, yeah, you can go see a headliner or two, but you really should go see the club shows and these smaller shows. For example, the Laugh Button mentioned, on any given night, you could see some of the best comedians working today doing a set. The highlights were Josh Adam Meyer's Goddamn Comedy Jam and The Drop-In. The Drop-In featured some of your favorite comics every night. The night they were there, Big J Okerson, Jay Farrow, and Harlan Williams. See, that's a great show. For The Drop-In an hour later, it was hosted by Joel Kim Booster and featured Beth Stelling, Jay Farrow, and Dion Cole. Also a great show, right? So I'm starting to look at Montreal. I'm waiting for them to announce what New Faces are. So what New Faces is, it's 2 shows of stand-ups and 1 of sketch, and 10 comedians get up, and you don't know any of them. And, you know, some of them won't make it and become famous, and a couple of them will be pretty famous. About 3-4 years seems to be where people begin to break out. So I like seeing those shows. I'm doing it from memory. I think often the 2 New Faces stand-up shows are back-to-backs, and that's usually like on a Wednesday evening. If I go up, I will do that. I'm starting to look at the schedule here. For example, Wednesday, July 27th. Here are your choices so far, and I'm on the Just for Laughs website. They have not really filled out all the headliners yet, but on this particular night, assuming there is no New Faces show that night, but I'm assuming there is, you could go see Just for the Culture, which used to be called The Ethnic Show, Brit-ish, or Tommy Tiernan at 7 o'clock. So those are all great choices. If it were me and there weren't a New Faces on that night, I'd go see Brit-ish because I like to see the British comedians. Hannah Gadsby at 8, fantastic. But, you know, you've got 2 specials on Netflix there. You can get a feel for what you think Hannah is like. And then at 9:30, The Nasty Show. So that would be the choice there. But again, this will really fill out. And I'll be talking a lot about Montreal as we get a little bit closer. Wow, Johnny Mac went long again. What a shock. All right, what can I tell you about here quickly? From the Chicago Tribune, the Second City Comedy Theater has announced a new artistic advisory board featuring former performers as curated by alumni Stephen Colbert. Some of the names on that 15-member board that you've heard of include Steve Carell, Tina Fey, Mac Packer, Keegan-Michael Key, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jane Lynch, Tim Meadows, Catherine O'Hara, and Jason Sudeikis. Stephen Colbert is the chair. Netflix has announced Mo Amer's show. It'll be called Mo. It stars Mo Amer as a Palestinian refugee whose family flees to Houston. That'll start streaming August 24th. I like Mo Amer a lot. Both his specials on Netflix are fantastic. The half-hour series is produced by fellow comedian Rami Youssef. Rami is coming back soon as well. Mo Amer plays Mo Najjar, a man who's learning to adapt to his new world as he embarks on a path to U.S. citizenship. He's trying to reconcile his 2 cultures and 3 languages, all while navigating the complicated and seemingly never-ending immigration process. He loves his family and tries to provide for them, even if they don't like how he does it. The BBC Comedy Festival kicks off in Newcastle tonight, and on your TV, Dana Carvey's on Jimmy Kimmel, Ken Jeong on Late Night with Seth, and David Spade will be on Corden. That's your comedy news for today, because I hear my wife doing the laundry and I'm all distracted now. Follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.